Have you ever felt, well, stuck? Like you're on a path that should feel right, but deep down something just feels off? What if I told you there's a way to break free and figure out what actually excites you? Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from the book Tiny Experiments by Anne-Laure Le Cunff. So let's start with a story. This is about Anne-Laure herself. On paper, she had absolutely everything figured out. A dream job at Google, an amazing team, a clear path up the corporate ladder. But even with all that success, she was really unhappy. She felt like she was just suffocating her own curiosity. And her story brings up a huge question that I think a lot of us can relate to. Why do we stay on these paths even when they start to feel like they're draining the life out of us? Every time she had a new idea, maybe for a course or a newsletter or a little startup, that safe linear path would just pull her right back in. The author uses this fantastic metaphor for it. She says that ignoring your curiosity is like disconnecting the smoke alarm in your house. At first it just quiets a nagging sound, no big deal. But in the long run, wow, it can be an absolute disaster. So what's actually drowning out that alarm? Well, it often comes down to these two really powerful mental scripts that just keep us locked in place. Let's break them down. First up, you've got the sequel script. This is that little voice in your head that says, hey, you've invested so much time here, you have to keep building on what you've already done. It's logical, it's safe, but it almost never leads to work that genuinely gets you excited. Then you've got the crowd pleaser script, which is all about the fear of what other people will think. We dodge the interesting paths because, we're worried we'll look foolish or disappoint someone. And together, these two scripts trap us in this totally linear way of thinking. It's kind of like planning an epic cross-country road trip to some legendary theme park. You follow the map perfectly, you don't take a single detour, only to get there and find out it's a huge letdown. The rides are all closed, the paint's peeling, the magic just isn't there. And the whole time, you drove right past all these interesting-looking side roads. Maybe there was a cool music festival in some tiny town or a chance to go rock climbing for the very first time. Those detours, those little unplanned adventures, that's where the real magic, the real discovery actually happens. So how do you start taking those side roads without, completely blowing up your life? Well, the escape route, according to the author, is all about running tiny experiments. A tiny experiment is exactly what it sounds like, a short, focused, and super low-stakes test. It's just a way to explore something you're curious about and start building a little momentum. The best part? There's almost no downside, and you definitely don't have to quit your job. And these experiments can be literally anything. Maybe you commit to writing a newsletter for just 30 days. Or you decide to spend 50 days helping people out on Reddit in a niche you love. Or maybe even 100 days creating little video shorts. The whole idea is just to pick something you're curious about and start making stuff. Now, there are 3 key things that make these experiments so powerful. First, they are time-bound. They have a clear end date, so they feel totally manageable. Second, they're output-focused. The goal isn't to get a million views or likes. The goal is just to create. And third, they're iterative. You start simple and just try to get a tiny bit better each time. Okay, so you're ready to try one. But how do you make sure you're actually learning and growing from it? Well, there's a dead simple weekly framework you can use. And the best part? It only takes about 15 minutes a week. That's it. This isn't some massive, complicated process. It's just a quick, powerful moment of reflection that's going to supercharge your learning. It's called the plus minus next framework. The idea is super simple. Once a week, you open a document. In the plus column, you jot down what's working, what you're enjoying. In the minus column, what's not working. And in the next column, you decide on a few practical changes for the week ahead. This simple rhythm creates this amazing feedback loop for really rapid growth. So after all this experimenting, what's the actual payoff? Well, this is where things get really transformative. The ultimate goal here is to find that thing that to everybody else looks like work, but to you, it just feels like play. It's all about aligning what you do for a living with what you are naturally curious about, what gives you energy instead of what drains it. And there's another incredible benefit. As you start putting your little explorations out into the world, you might just find your tribe, a community of people who share your weird interests, who totally get what you're doing, and who actually want to hear what you have to say. And that connection can be just as fulfilling as the work itself. So this brings us to the final thought.
Your life isn't some straight, predictable path to a single destination. It's a laboratory full of incredible possibilities. So the only real question left is, what tiny experiment are you going to run first?